Hello, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today for our Connecting the Dots event here with between Oasis and Covalent. We're joined today by Harris, the lead dev role at Covalent. Harris, maybe you want to introduce yourself and just say a few words?
Yeah, William, thanks so much for the intro, and hello, everyone. I am the head of DevRel at Covalent, and pretty excited to be here with this very passionate community that I know exists at Oasis, and talk a little bit about our unified API and what Covalent sort of offers the Oasis ecosystem and the broader Web3 ecosystem in general. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super happy to talk to our developer community today as we're having this hackathon. This is our third event in our hackathon series, and Covalent has been one of our longest partners, both partnering with our Emerald network as well as recently our Sapphire network. So glad that we are going to get the chance to talk to the developers about how they can leverage Covalent for some of their hackathon projects today. First, quickly, I'll just go through a brief deck about Oasis. For anyone who's been tuning into our last two, it's going to be the same deck. So I'll go through it quickly, and then we can get into the Covalent side of things. I have to share screen. All right, can you see the slideshow? Yeah, okay. Perfect. So this is, we're going to be talking today about the Oasis network. We are a layer 1 blockchain network focused on privacy and confidentiality. Okay, so this is just a little infographic about what our architecture looks like. So we have we basically have a modular blockchain architecture, somewhat similar to, I guess, like the Ethereum blockchain. So we have an underlying consensus layer, which is like analogous to the beacon chain on Ethereum, with the major difference being that our consensus layer just handles validation of proofs from the execution layer, governance, and staking. So there's no like smart contract support. This allows our consensus layer to be fairly scalable and hit like 1,000 transactions per second, which is pretty advanced, I would say, for modular blockchains. This allows us to do some interesting things in the future, such as like sending cross-chain messages or paratime messages through the consensus layer, as well as just have like a lot of versatility for what can be built on our execution layer. Our execution layer is made up of paratimes that all submit root hashes or proofs to the consensus layer. Paratimes stands for parallel runtimes, but in reality, they can just be thought of as like rollups. They're pretty much the same thing. They're just not like optimistic rollups or ZK rollups. They don't submit fraud proofs or validity proofs. They submit what we call bare metal proofs. And again, these are just it's a bit different in the sense that it doesn't hit like a couple thousand transactions per second, like an optimistic rollup, which I think hits like a couple thousand, but also has 1 week finality. Paratimes have instant finality and can hit like a couple hundred transactions per second. But in a lot of ways, that if you're familiar with the Ethereum blockchain or the Ethereum 2.0 blockchain, it's very similar to that. But the other really interesting thing about what we did is it allows us to be very flexible with how we build these rollups for these paratimes. And we have 2 confidential runtimes, Sapphire and Cypher. Sapphire is the one we're going to be talking the most about today, but both of them use sort of this confidential runtime technology. Basically, what that is that all the validators of these runtimes run what is known as Intel SGX trusted execution environments. This operates as a black box where all data is state changes and data that is being changed on the blockchain is encrypted by default. It goes inside this trusted execution environment where it's then decrypted, where it then runs just like any other EVM, and then it's re-encrypted before the output is sent out. So in this way, we have the ability to create runtimes that have confidential state, which we'll get into in a bit. But it creates a lot of interesting opportunities, and new sophisticated use cases for Web3. So what we're focused on at Oasis, like I said, is confidentiality and privacy. So basically, this modular architecture we've had has given us scalability, as I went over before, with a couple thousand transactions per second on the consensus layer, and then each runtime having a couple hundred transactions per second executing in parallel. We have privacy. The way we like to think about it is like in the Web 2.0, Web 1.0 world. The sort of massive expansion that came in, the utility of it came from the switch from HTTP to HTTPS. This is where you got e-commerce, and you got like this whole expansion of basically finance, as well as all these interesting applications that can be done on the internet. And we think that basically privacy will do the same thing in the Web 3.0 world. We're just going to greatly expand the level of complexity and sophistication that smart contract applications can be used for. And then finally, decentralized identity. I think this has been like a long promised use case for Web3, but clearly, like, there's been some missing links, and we think that privacy is one of them. If we want to empower Web3 users to truly have a decentralized identity where they have autonomy over their data. So, yeah, why on-chain privacy matters. So here's just a few use cases of like where you might think that you need more confidentiality. So for DAOs and governance, I think that in the traditional world, like almost any time you vote on anything, it's anonymous, right? I think this is probably because we long ago figured out that like if you don't vote anonymously, like a lot of bias is brought into the voting and governance process. But this is not like currently something that's possible in Web3 due to the transparent nature of blockchains. So with Sapphire, I guess with Cypher as well, but with these confidential runtimes, you now have the ability to, add confidential voting if you think that that's necessary for a governance process. Decentralized identity, we talked a little bit about this, but like you can basically, in the same way that Bitcoin enabled you to, gain control over, an asset, a monetary asset. Now users can do things like tokenize data and then grant and revoke access to data using smart contracts that selectively disclose who has access to what data and what they can do with the data when they have access to it. So this is something that we're very interested in with the Sapphire runtime, and we think that it's like a very unique value proposition that Oasis can offer. Gaming, I give this example a lot, so it might be a bit tired, but like almost any compelling game has like some sort of confidential logic. So, you have like poker where you can't know what's in the other player's hands. You can't know what the next card is. You have strategy games where there's like this fog of war mechanic, and there's like certain units on the map where you can't see what's going on there. You have quests, riddles, puzzles that have hidden solutions. All these are like impossible to do on chain. So if you want to build truly on chain games, Sapphire offers a lot of new value to that. And DeFi, I think in the traditional world, not only is like privacy like something that's nice to have, in a lot of cases, it's legally required that there be some level of privacy, and like people's financial transactions and financial data will be hidden. Also, MEV has been a hot topic recently, and privacy means that you can have a hidden mempool, and so you can maybe do some interesting things with MEV as well. So these are just a few use cases for why privacy is important to Web3. So we went over about the Sapphire a bit, but here are some of the interesting aspects or features of the network. So on Sapphire, basically you can choose transparent variables and private variables, and anything that's private variables are actually private and protected by the Oasis TE. This enables you to build applications on the network that are entirely transparent, entirely private, or somewhere on the spectrum in between. So you get to choose exactly what you want to keep private and what you don't. It's EVM compatible, and it offers like an identical experience to Ethereum. Only moderately small amounts of things must be changed, and for that we have a compatibility library. So any developer who has this experience Solidity should be able to launch on Oasis Sapphire, no problem. Like I said, we're fairly scalable with a couple hundred transactions per second, so it's 99.9% lower fees than Ethereum. We have some cool features like built-in RNG, so that you don't need like VRF oracles or anything like that. And then it has, like I said, it functions exactly like an EVM inside the TE. So it's like it supports general purpose smart contracts, as well as full composability. So yeah, this brings us to this idea of a privacy layer for Web3. Basically, soon after launching Sapphire, we quickly figured out that we can probably offer a lot of these benefits to other networks as well, to other to other EVM compatible chains as well. And the features were not just siloed to the Sapphire ecosystem. So by leveraging sort of message passing bridges and relayers, we can connect dApps from Sapphire to other networks like Polygon or EVM or Ethereum, and then they can sort of build modular applications where part of it runs on one chain and the private parts run on Sapphire. So I won't go too much into it, but like maybe the best example would be like the gaming example again. So if you can imagine that you have like I said, a role-playing game on Polygon. Basically, if you wanted to add like a riddle with a hidden solution that is on chain on Polygon, that would be impossible today. But also, you probably don't want to move your entire game to Sapphire just because you want to add a couple riddles to the game. On Polygon, that's where a lot of your users are, and that's where a lot of the liquidity is for your NFTs and that sort of thing. So instead of moving the entire application, what you just do is you build that that riddle smart contract on Sapphire, and then you connect the two with messaging bridges and gas relayers. And so basically the user experience will look something like you're playing the game on Polygon. You get to the point where you have to solve a riddle. MetaMask will automatically switch from Polygon to Sapphire. You'll submit your encrypted solution to the riddle on Sapphire. And then if your solution is correct, the smart contract will send a message over the messaging bridge back to Polygon, where it'll unlock your NFT reward or something along those lines. And then you can use like a gas relayer so that the user pays for the gas of what they submit on Sapphire in Matic token. And so at that point, you've completely abstracted away that they're even like leaving the network. And so, we think that this idea of an Oasis privacy layer to enable these sort of use cases is going to greatly enhance like the sophistication and complexity of what can be done in Web3. So some other use cases are secret ballots. That again, like that's the DAO voting contract. You can do something very similar where basically instead of moving the assets of a DAO all the way to Sapphire, you can keep the DAO basically running entirely on whatever chain it's on and just have like the governance voting process that's submitted on Sapphire, where the results will eventually be aggregated and sent back to the home network. At least the results will be sent back to the home network while hiding it with how everyone voted during the process. Other use cases are sealed bid auctions, digital identity, and private payments. So the developer goal when working on Sapphire is that you can start getting integrated in 15 minutes or less. And so far, we've had great feedback from developers. So yeah, a quick infographic on how the Oasis privacy layer works. So you can see that there's both a network, a Sapphire network. Messages are being passed from one network to the other, leveraging gas relayers as well as the messaging bridge. And then so that was my quick presentation on Sapphire. I think that probably a lot of people who are tuning in have already heard this before. But if you have any questions, come into our Discord. Come into our Telegram, ask. We're happy to help, and I hope that people are interested in leveraging these technologies, sort of novel technologies, and have some really cool hackathon submissions. Yeah. Anyway, without further ado, Harish, I'd love to hear about how they can leverage Covalent in their hackathon submissions as well.
Yeah, very, very cool presentation, William. And as you kind of pointed out, the confidentiality element of Sapphire is a novel use case and novel tech. Really interested to see sort of how that's being adopted. I think that's something unique in the ecosystem. So thanks for walking through that. Let me share my screen. I just got a couple slides. Again, I'm going to sort of focus on the tooling that you as a developer can leverage for your hackathon builds. And again, if you're not familiar with Covalent, I'll talk a little bit about sort of what the focus for us is as a indexer and data provider for Web3 data, and then just go through some examples of what we've seen built in hackathons. And hopefully they can serve as a source of inspiration for what you might be building. Okay, let's get this up and running. Okay, so the key challenges that we as Covalent are aiming to solve is this ability to quickly and scalably fetch on-chain data. And of course, the utility of this data is, it's quite broad. You would use it for wallets, you would use it for all sorts of dashboards, you would use it for, taxation tools, you'd use it for gaming to fetch, for example, your NFT assets. So there are a lot of interesting use cases for on-chain data, but accessing that can be a challenge. There might be some tooling where you have to write some custom SQL or write some custom code to be able to fetch that. You may have to fetch it across multiple sources. So maybe you have to, utilize multiple RPC providers to fetch data across a few different chains if you are using some sort of cross-chain application. And there's always this question of whether I just run the infrastructure in house or I use some third party tooling. And of course, there's the cost element of whether you do it in house or what the price might be if you buy it. So all of these are just additional friction points as you sort of identify ways to access on chain data. And so we as Covalent, we've got this focus as being the this core database, if you will, of the Web3 ecosystem. So we've kind of broken this out into sort of the two main areas. We've got the supply side, or the data sources, and so this is blockchains like Oasis, and we've kind of termed ourselves as being this concept of a wayback machine, the Ethereum wayback machine, or any sort of EVM compatible wayback machine. And so the idea there is you can always have this snapshot where you go back in time and be able to, get things like a wallet's balances or transactions or any sort of on-chain record. And we've kind of been moving towards this concept even more aggressively as various protocols in the space highlight that being able to store, or the ability or the need to store archival data isn't maybe a core part of that protocol, but rather offloaded as a service to other providers. And so on the distribution side, you've got things like various interfaces to access this data. So we offer this unified API broken out into various categories of endpoints, so you can quickly and reliably fetch on-chain data through an interface that I think most developers are already familiar with. We also have, a BI tool if you're doing, any sort of charts or reports, and that feeds into your application. This is sort of the overall ecosystem that we're working towards from a data perspective. And so our two data products, as mentioned, so we've got our unified API for developers. We're going to focus most of our time on that, but we also have this product called Increment that, as an analyst, you can sort of dive in and create all sorts of fancy charts and reports. And I'll show you an example of what that would look like. It's still in a very early stage in terms of the commercial model for Increment, but we have opened it up for developers and analysts to start playing around and seeing if it meets their particular use case. So a couple of resources I'm going to talk through. And from a perspective of somebody participating in a hackathon, everything that I'm going to talk about here ties back to this hackathon starter kit that we have developed, and we find that this is quite a powerful sort of resource because it gives you a quick summary of some of the core endpoints that we offer through our unified API. And it also gives you access to a few different resources like the Postman collection I mentioned. We've got an SDK, a TypeScript SDK, and a Python SDK that can be utilized. We've also got faucets. So if you are building cross-chain applications, you can quickly and readily access test tokens. And then the more interesting bit is just some of the project ideas that we've listed, and also a showcase of some of the really neat projects that we've seen built in the ecosystem. And so I'll touch upon a few of these, but I'm just going to share the link to this page here, and hopefully the fine folks here at Oasis can also distribute that link so you can access this page. Let's see. So it's been pretty cool to see some marquee projects actually building on Oasis using Covalent. So I just want to touch upon a few of them that we've noticed. So Particle Network, they're a pretty prominent Web3 SDK. They've got support for Oasis, and they utilize us on the back end. You've got Jump Trading, a pretty well-known trading outfit. And they also leverage Oasis data for their platform. You got Credo, you got XDAO, CoinLedger. So across digital asset custody or DAO tooling or taxation, pretty broad spectrum of use cases we've seen building on Oasis with Covalent. So really cool to see that ecosystem grow, and we're constantly encouraging projects using us to explore various facets of the broad ecosystem that we support, like Oasis and their confidential EVM. So yeah, it's been neat to see that. In terms of what you would do again with on-chain data, I kind of mentioned a few of these, but these are probably some of the more high-profile categories. So wallet and portfolio trackers, digital asset accounting with taxation, compliance, audit tools. And then, using a tool like Increment for building out analyst charts and reports. Let me show you how you can actually build some of the more, maybe well-known applications in Web3 using some of our endpoints, and then we'll sort of explore a few of these. So, for example, if you're building a portfolio tracker, this just kind of shows the mapping of a particular endpoint that we offer. For example, fetching all the balances for a wallet address, including all their NFT assets, and just how it maps to the different visuals that you might see on a portfolio tracker that you've used. So having a snapshot of sort of the net summary of the wallet that you're analyzing, to having a full breakdown of all your tokens, to the underlying NFTs and their attributes. All of that you actually get with one endpoint, which we find to be a pretty powerful one. If you're building a wallet, sort of same idea. You've kind of got that one key endpoint to fetch all the balances. We also have a transaction endpoint, so you can very quickly fetch all historical transactions from basically the very first one for any given wallet address, and you can also do this across multiple chains pretty easily. If you're building an NFT gallery, we've got endpoints for not only just the attributes and some of the collection details, but also some of the sales and market data. So getting things like floor price, getting things like some of the sales data. We actually have scraped and decoded a lot of this across many marketplaces. Some of this data is actually not actually on chain, so it's been a bit of a manual effort to scrape and provide that data through the API. So let's take a look at just some project examples. I think this is probably more interesting. So in the case of wallets, account abstraction, and again, leveraging a confidential EVM, I think plays well to this sort of concept with respect to account abstraction. So here's one that was built on, I believe this is Phantom. But a really interesting implementation. And again, this idea of any sort of contract now representing your wallet allows you to then tie in with all sorts of authentication tooling and methodology, which is really cool. We've seen NFT marketplaces. The general trend right now is AI. So you're seeing all sorts of AI elements pulled into many of these. So leveraging prompt to identify, various NFTs that might be of interest based on, your desired attributes or your desired interests. We have one here where it's like an AI agent. So you can actually deploy contracts just by simply telling it to deploy an NFT contract or a host of other templates that they have, whether it's a token, or some of the other popular use cases. So this is actually all done through a prompt mechanism, which is actually really cool. And then we get into gaming, obviously a very big one. This one leveraging some of the NFT assets across multiple chains to be able to swap, be able to trade up or trade trade for different goodies in your gaming environment, and leveraging predominantly the Unity SDK to build this really quickly. We've seen some really cool examples helping small businesses. So here's one where you've actually got a point of sale terminal that actually connects with an application, and so you can actually do your payment and have this point of sale terminal print out the receipt almost in real time. And so we saw this built at a recent Eat Global event, and this was actually really cool. I would recommend you check this one out, where you kind of combine the hardware element with, of course, a really cool application powered by Web3, essentially. And then block explorers, this is another pretty common use case that we see, but again, sort of tying in some interesting facets of AI. So being able to quickly type in, tell me all the cross-chain messages between, let's say, Optimism and Sapphire, for example. So you can do that very quickly with this type of implementation that we saw one team build out, and then you get all the underlying details with respect to any two or any pair of blockchains that you want to see transaction messages between. So some really cool ideas here, and then we've also listed a few others that we'd love to see people explore. So definitely check it out. Below here, we've got some of the blog posts that have a bit more detail on the list of submissions that came through each of these events, and hopefully these serve as a source of inspiration to build out your application. I'm just going to sort of wrap up my part here by talking a little bit about the API and just some of the endpoints that we talked about in the perspective of the use cases. So, token balances is probably our most popular one. We've got the ability to fetch historical token balances. So again, this concept of a Wayback Machine, being able to go back in time and get snapshots for wallets at any given block height. You can do that. You can get all your token transfers. You can get all your token holders for a particular ERC20 token as of a block height. You've got a series of NFT related endpoints with respect to getting all the NFTs for a contract, or their traits or their attributes. For leveraging ownership and token gating, you can check if a wallet's actually got ownership in a particular collection and use that for a variety of different gating mechanisms. Transactions, again, you can sort of fetch the full history of both a wallet or a contract's transaction history from a variety of methods. So you can do it with specifying a time, or specifying a block, or just scraping the entire history for a wallet address. Some of the cool ones that we've also seen based on use cases that we've built out. So there's this new one that we've just made public, get cross-chain activity for address. So for something like this, I can actually just take any wallet address, or contract address in this case here, and you can actually get the full list of every chain that this particular wallet is active on. And so what that allows you to do is, with one call, is to get a snapshot of their activity across Web3 with the supported chains that we offer, and then be able to drill in and dive deeper into their activity on a given chain. So this has been a pretty popular one that we've just released more broadly. I think just this week, that I think would be quite useful. We then have sort of our protocol specific endpoints that are under Class B. We've got some pricing ones, and then we've been building out even more protocol specific endpoints. So this is, getting everything from the market data or the balance and positions of a wallet in a given protocol. So I encourage you to explore some of those endpoints. There's some really neat stuff available there. Yeah, and so in a nutshell, that's Covalent. So again, if you're looking for on-chain data in your build, give our API a try. I think you'll find that it offers you a pretty broad spectrum of support across, I think, 150 chains now, including both Emerald and Sapphire with respect to Oasis. And yeah, we're constantly looking to expand that, but also offer a pretty broad set of data, including log events, transactions, balances, everything that you can think of on chain as quickly as possible for developers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harsh. That was a great presentation, and I think from the very beginning, and one of the things you highlighted in your presentation that I think sets Covalent apart from maybe other indexers, and why we thought it was so important to partner with you guys is this focus on sort of cross chain. I think that it's super easy to just plug in a different chain ID and basically have everything just run with Covalent. And in terms of like what we're trying to do with Opal and Sapphire, I think that this is exactly what we're looking for, and a great tool for developers to leverage. We did have one question. We did get a few questions. One question that came in that I was hoping that maybe you can answer is regarding getting credits for Covalent APIs. How can developers looking to use Covalent in their applications during the hackathon get credits for Covalent APIs?
Yeah, so we actually offer a pretty generous number of credits right off the bat for free. For exactly this use case for developers building something out at a hackathon. So you get 100,000 credits as part of the free tier per month. And so when you sign up for the API key, you'll get this by default, that you can go and try out the API with basically no cost, and get a feel for the endpoints and get a feel for the data sets that we offer. And typically that's the journey even through the different paid plans. Usually a lot of our customers, and probably every single one that you see on this the slide here, started just by experimenting on the free tier, and then gradually moved up if they needed sort of higher throughput or they needed more credits. Then it's just on a pay as you go sort of credit process.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, and like you said, I think that's a very generous amount to start for a hackathon project.
Mm-hmm.
At least, yeah, I would have trouble running out of those credits in a month. Another question I had was, I guess the question we got from the audience was, is there any ideas that can be built for Sapphire using Covalent APIs? I think you went through a few of those ideas. So maybe what would be like your favorite idea? What is something interesting that you think could be built using confidentiality and Covalent APIs? So where do you see it best fitting in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so again, I hopefully this link gets out for a starter kit. There's some interesting ideas here. And I think what's cool with sort of the privacy or the confidentiality piece is that you can kind of take every one of these categories that we've highlighted here and add in that element of privacy to your build, leveraging Sapphire. And this is something that you don't see being offered by other sort of EVMs or other ecosystems in maybe the same manner, which I think kind of speaks to the novelty of having this functionality. So if you're building out, I think William, you kind of mentioned some of the gaming elements, but this kind of applies if you're talking about some of the NFTs. Maybe you have applications where you can maybe obscure like some aspect or some attribute or some trait of an NFT until maybe you want to reveal it as part of some token gating or some attribute gating type of experience. You can kind of leverage privacy for that. With DeFi, I think that's a pretty there's a lot of use cases there for leveraging privacy. Everything from the types of swaps or the trades that you make, having that as a key part of the DEX itself, for example. Lots of applications there. So yeah, I mean, I think this is probably a good starting point just to stir the pot with some ideas, and then every one of these I think has an element of privacy that you can apply to it.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, I think there's just like an infinite amount of use cases that you can do leveraging cross-chain index data via Covalent, as well as like privacy. The confidential DAO voting use case, like you're going to need people's token balances in order to know what their like vote weight is. Maybe even if you're not using Covalent to push the vote weight over, like you still want it on the dashboard. I even like, there's this idea of like a degen score where like you take trading data across like all blockchain, and you can sort of, create like some sort of reputational model based on that. Maybe that's an NFT on Sapphire, a confidential NFT where like you can choose to show it to people or not show it to people. I don't know. There's like tons of use cases. So I really love the Covalent cross-chain approach. I think this makes it super simple for developers, and I love to see what people sort of will build with it. The one last question that we have for you, Harish, is with Covalent, can you curate the specific data you need, or does the endpoint just grab all NFT data on a specific chain?
Yeah, there's a few different endpoints that we offer there, and there's actually tooling to even build your own custom endpoint that we're releasing. You can actually go into Increment and take your SQL query and then translate that into a custom endpoint. So if you don't find the specific data set that you want through the existing APIs, you can actually custom build your own, which is a pretty cool feature for developers. So with respect to NFTs, we offer everything from the perspective of a wallet to get their NFT assets, and then from there you also get all the underlying metadata as well as the asset link itself. So with many of the chains, we actually cache the NFTs, so you don't have to go to this upstream service to then download it, essentially, like IPFS or AWS or wherever it might be. And then we also have, from the collection perspective, for an NFT contract, you can actually get the list of all the tokens. You can get a list of all their attributes and traits, and then you can even get some of the marketplace for the sales data for those corresponding NFTs. So yeah, there's actually a lot of NFT related data that we offer just through our existing set of endpoints, both from the wallet perspective and then also from the collection perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know you could do all that with your guys' NFT API. That's awesome. There's two other questions that I guess were Oasis perspective, or relevant to Oasis. One was, I want to know more about the link between Sapphire and account abstraction, how it all works. Yeah, so for that, we did just have a great Twitter Spaces a few days ago with Harry, who from the Oasis team, and Johnny from the Imperial team, where we went over some account abstraction use cases. So if you want a lot more info on that, you can go check out that Twitter space. But the basic like premise would be that smart contracts on Sapphire sort of already have this idea of EIP 4337 sort of built in. They already have the ability to have their own private keys and operate as like a smart contract and an EOA at the same time. And that allows them to sort of like sign transactions on other chains if necessary. So yeah, you can have a smart contract on Sapphire that has like the private keys to a wallet on Ethereum or something like that, and therefore can sort of act as a smart wallet. And that would be like the basic premise. But again, like if you want to go in more detail, we have an hour-long conversation in a Twitter space the other day, so you can go check that out. Yeah, and then the next question was I want to ask what's the difference between Covalent Indexer and the Oasis Nexus? So Oasis Nexus is sort of an indexer we built specifically trying to build out our block explorer. So we needed a better indexer internally to build out a block explorer that we then opened up to the community. I would say the major difference is Covalent has all of these amazing APIs that Harris has just gone through, and yeah, the Oasis Nexus is not really built for that sort of thing. I think you could of course do it, but it just probably makes more sense to use Covalent. And the other one is of course that Covalent is cross-chain, and so we have this major focus on the Oasis privacy layer and leveraging the data from all these different chains in order to make that work. Oasis Nexus is just going to have data from the Oasis specific paradigm, so Sapphire and Emerald. So yeah, for Opal use cases, definitely use Covalent. That would, I say, the major differences.
And maybe just to add to that, I mean, there'll always be some interesting nuances that the Oasis team is best able to address with their own indexer. So I think there's always a role to play with having this tooling built in house, but then also being able to partner with other third parties that can offer some other additional benefits like cross chain, as you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the real reason we needed to build something in-house was for the block explorer with a private paradigm. We did have to sort of be able to eventually build this idea of sharing users' data with only that user, because the private users will want to see their own private transactions on a block explorer, but obviously then you don't want other people to be able to see what your private transactions are. And this was probably too large a task to talk to any third party about at that time at least. And so we wanted to just have a tool for that. And then, the idea is then to open it up to the community and make everything open source, as that's sort of always Oasis' vision. But yeah, I would say for most DeFi applications or gaming applications or any of your hackathon projects, it's probably a lot quicker, a lot easier, and just a better overall time if you use the Covalent indexer. But yeah, do you have any closing thoughts, Harish? Anything else? Anything coming up from Covalent? Any events or anything else you want to just plug before we sign off for the day?
Yeah, just one. So we actually recently announced this initiative where, especially for projects coming out of hackathons and accelerators, incubators, sort of early stage, we're actually offering pretty generous grants to help developers build. And so for anyone coming out of the Oasis event, looking to have a bit of a bootstrap approach to building and continuing to build their project, we're offering up to 25,000 in credits essentially for those projects. So if this is of interest, after you've sort of built out your initial prototype, please come check it out. I'll just drop the link in here, but it's just covalenthq.com/grant. And this is just a way for us to further help the ecosystem continue to build their pretty exciting projects.
Awesome, that's great. That's a pretty amazing grant size. So yeah, hopefully products that are building can win some prize money in the Oasis Hackathon and then move to the Covalent Grants Program, as well as the Oasis Grants Program. I think it's great that you have so many initiatives to help empower these developers and sort of get them from this MVP stage to something that they might really want to bring to production. On the Oasis side of things, we have our hackathon, as you guys are all aware. We also have a few, Twitter Spaces and other hackathon related events like our pitch night coming up. So yeah, stay tuned on Twitter and Discord to keep up with all the events. And yeah, happy developing, everybody, and hope to see what you guys sort of build in the next few weeks. Thank you so much, Harris. Hope you have
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everybody for tuning in today. Hope you all have a great day.
Thanks everyone. Good luck with your builds.
Bye-bye.